Welcome to Habit Tracker, a channel centered on the habit of tracking and evaluating popular claims to determine what's truth or tale. Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. In our last video, we kicked off this series by looking at common claims from the political right and trying to sort truth from tale. We also started exploring how our ingrained habits of thinking shape how we see the political world. Today, we're continuing that exploration by focusing on the political left in the USA. There are plenty of widely circulated claims about what people on the left believe and how they act. We're going to take on 5 of them with a clear truth or tale verdict based on how the claim is typically stated, and then dive into the nuance, looking at the observations that fuel the claim and how different habits of thought lead to different interpretations. The goal isn't just a simple yes or no, but understanding the complexity behind the headlines. Ready? Let's get into 5 common claims about the political left in the USA. Claim 1. People on the political left want a massive government that controls everything, reflecting a habit of relying on centralized authority to solve problems. Based on the typical policy goals compared to the political right, the core idea of seeking a significantly larger government role leans towards truth. Here's why. It is fundamentally true that individuals and groups on the political left generally advocate for a significantly larger, more active government role in the economy and society, proposing extensive programs, regulations, and public spending relative to the political right. This is a core observable difference between the two sides and the basis for the claim about wanting a massive government. This reflects a deeply ingrained habit of thought that sees government as a powerful and necessary tool to address large-scale societal problems, level the playing field, and protect vulnerable populations. There's often a habit of prioritizing collective well-being and believing that certain essential services and protections should be guaranteed as rights, and that the government has a responsibility to ensure they are accessible to all. This desire for a robust active government role is the central truth of the claim about wanting a massive government relative to the spectrum. The tail part is the exaggeration controls everything. This overstates the intent and ignores the significant diversity of thought within the left itself. Not all progressives or liberals agree on the size or scope of every government program, and debates exist about potential overreach in certain areas. The specific goals behind proposed programs are typically framed as providing support, ensuring fairness, or regulating harmful practices aimed at solving specific societal problems, rather than establishing absolute control over individuals' lives. So while the desire for a massive government role is largely true, the intent to control everything is the tale often added by critics. Claim 2. Those on the political left care more about feelings and political correctness than common sense or economic reality, demonstrating a habit of prioritizing social sensitivities over practical concerns. Given the loaded framing, more about than and over practical concerns, this claim is largely a tale. Here's why. There's an observation here that gives rise to this claim. The political left does often place a strong emphasis on social justice issues, identity, and being mindful of how language affects different groups, what critics label as political correctness. This highlights a habitual expression of a desire to create a more inclusive and equitable society, where individuals from all backgrounds feel respected and affirmed. This ingrained habit comes from a perspective that recognizes historical and ongoing systemic inequalities and believes that addressing these requires careful attention to language, representation, and power dynamics. The focus on social sensitivity isn't necessarily just about superficial feelings, but a habitual consideration of the human experience of those who have been historically disadvantaged. The tale emerges because the claim frames this focus as being more important than, or instead of, common sense or economic reality. Those on the left would argue that social well-being and equity are essential components of a healthy society and contribute to overall stability and prosperity in the long run, and that inclusive language is part of creating that reality. What one side calls common sense or economic reality, the other might see as overlooking crucial social impacts or defining reality too narrowly. The habit here is one of heightened social awareness and a commitment to minimizing harm and promoting dignity for all groups, which they see as a vital and practical part of approaching reality responsibly, not something over it. Claim 3. People on the left are always pushing for radical, fast-paced change without considering consequences, reflecting a habit of favoring disruption over stability. The assertion about advocating for significant and relative swift societal change compared to the right contains enough observable truth to lean towards truth, with important caveats. Here's why. It's generally true that the political left is more associated with advocating for significant and often faster-paced societal changes and reforms compared to the political right's emphasis on tradition and incrementalism. This is an observable difference in their approach to addressing perceived problems and a core element of progressive thought. This points to an ingrained habit on the left of identifying perceived injustices, inequalities, or inefficiencies in the current system and having a strong impetus to improve things relatively quickly. There's a habitual forward-looking perspective, a belief that society can and should evolve to become more just, equitable, and efficient, and that sometimes requires notable shifts in policy and structure. This advocacy for significant, timely change is the truth at the heart of the claim. The tail aspect is the interpretation that these changes are always radical or proposed without considering consequences, implying a lack of thoughtfulness or a desire for disruption for its own sake. Many political proposals from the left are the result of extensive research, debate, and consideration of potential outcomes intended to create specific positive changes, even if they involve significant shifts that change the status quo. The habit is one of actively seeking improvement and progress based on their values, which can sometimes be perceived as reckless or disruptive by those whose primary habit is valuing stability and caution, leading to the tail of thoughtless radicalism. Claim 4. The left prioritizes group identity and division over unity and individual merit, demonstrating a habit of focusing on collective grievances. The assertion that the left visibly prioritizes discussion and analysis through the lens of group identity is truth, although the part about division over unity and individual merit is often a debatable interpretation. Here's why. It is undeniably true that the political left visibly and often prioritizes discussions and policies related to group identity and how systemic issues affect these groups. This focus on group identity is a central and observable characteristic of modern left-leaning discourse and policy advocacy. This reflects an ingrained habit here of analyzing historical and ongoing systemic inequalities through the lens of how different groups have been affected by power dynamics and systemic issues. There's a habitual focus on advocating for the rights and representation of marginalized communities, believing that true equality requires acknowledging and addressing specific group disadvantages, and that individual experiences are often shaped by group contexts. This prioritization of analyzing societal impacts through group identity is the core of the claim. The tail part comes in the interpretation that this focus automatically creates division over unity or dismisses individual merit. Those on the left would argue that this focus isn't about creating division, but about achieving a more genuine and inclusive unity by ensuring that all groups have equal opportunity and are free from discrimination, which they believe allows individual merit to flourish more equitably within a just system. They might argue that ignoring group identity and historical context actually perpetuates inequality and division. The habit is one of critically examining societal structures from the perspective of those who have been historically excluded or oppressed, with the goal of a more equitable society, which is the truth of their focus, even if the resulting perception from critics is one of division or de-emphasis on individual merit in favor of group outcomes. Claim 5. Those on the left are anti-America or disrespect traditional American values and institutions, reflecting a habit of criticizing the nation's foundations. The labels anti-America or asserting they inherently disrespect makes this claim a tail. Here's why. There's certainly a visible aspect of the left that gives rise to this claim. They are often vocal critics of aspects of American history, current policies, and established institutions. This highlights a habit of critically examining the nation's past and present, and believing the nation has not always lived up to its stated ideals of liberty and justice for all. The habit is one of holding the nation accountable to its foundational promises and pushing for reforms that they believe will make the country more aligned with those ideals. Criticizing policies, historical actions, or established power structures is seen by them as a necessary act, aimed at perfecting the Union rather than accepting the status quo uncritically. This critical approach is the observable behavior. The tale is the interpretation often added by critics that this criticism automatically amounts to being anti-America or inherently disrespecting fundamental values and institutions in a malicious way. While this critical habit can be perceived as disrespectful by those who have a primary habit of revering traditional institutions and narratives, it's usually rooted in a different vision for the country's future, one that often seeks to expand definitions of freedom, equality, and justice. It's a habit of striving for a more perfect rather than already perfect union, which is a different way of expressing connection to the nation's potential, not necessarily outright disrespect or being fundamentally against the country. So there you have it, 5 common claims about people on the political left in the USA. While some core assertions about their policy goals and areas of focus hold significant truth, other claims, particularly those loaded with language and strong negative interpretations, fall more into the category of tale. Understanding the underlying habits of thought, prioritizing collective well-being and government action, focusing on inclusivity and social sensitivity, seeking progress and reform, analyzing through group experiences, and critically examining institutions helps us see the perspectives that drive these actions and why the simplified claims are often incomplete or misleading interpretations. The goal of this series is to encourage a more thoughtful way of looking at political differences, recognizing that people on all sides are often motivated by deeply held values and ingrained ways of seeing the world, and that the claims we hear often stem from real observations but are filtered and sometimes distorted through different perspectives and rhetorical framing. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What other common political claims or assumptions do you think are influenced by these kinds of ingrained habits of thinking and contain elements of both observable truth and interpretive tale? Drop your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this perspective interesting and want to continue these conversations, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next installment. Until next time, stay curious.